All right, so you just opened up FL Studio 21 and you have no idea how to get started. You're like, what are these buttons? How do I manipulate this sample? How do I even time stretch? How do I even load up my drums? I'm going to show you how to do all this stuff today in this free video in our new FL Studio series right at premium.busyworksbeats.com. I want to thank you. I'm Game from busyworksbeats.com. If you don't know me, we've trained over 900,000 producers around the world. We're trying to get to 1 million. So I need you to subscribe and like so we can help more and more people around the world. They've gone to work with Drake, Kanye West, Post Malone, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, YG, French Montana, I said that, Lil Baby, Polo G, man, so many, Trippie Redd, J. Cole, on and on and on. So I'm going to show you some techniques in FL Studio you can use to make sample beats easily. And I'm going to show you how to not only make old school sample beats, but make it also modern. So let's hop right into the DAW, our favorite DAW. I got to double check my cam because I've been changing my setup. Okay, cool, it works. All right, so again, I'll link the project files below. So if you get lost, just go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. I'll have the project files in a Dropbox for you, so no worries. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is load sound. So here, this little folder icon is how we find our sounds in FL Studio. If you don't have your sound packs loaded up, just go to where it says options, go to file settings, click one of these folders and just pick wherever you download your stuff. It could be your downloads folder, your desktop, wherever. Mine's on an external hard drive, so I just clicked on that folder. I would recommend that you just import the big folder, not the individual drum kit folders. Okay, so just import the folder that has everything else in it. It will make life so much easier for you. So once you have that, just click on your browser icon right here, and then click the little refresh button right here. That will refresh your whole browser. We're going to use some loops at busyworksbeats.com. This is by LA Crisis. He's crazy with the R&B sound. Like, this is the most authentic R&B sound I've ever heard. And it reminds me of Anita Baker. So we're going to grab his sample loop from Intuition at busyworksbeats.com. This is called Smoke Signal. I'll link it below so you don't get lost in everything. Okay, so let's drag this in. Now, FL Studio starts at 140 BPM by default. So if I just hit play and I turn on what's called the metronome, the thing that keeps track, the little ticks and clicks, it's super offbeat. So the first thing we need to do is switch the BPM to match the BPM of the sample. Now this sample's labeled so we know what BPM it is, but if you don't know the sample BPM, what you could do is tap the tempo. So you would listen in, you would hit spacebar to listen. Let me turn this down, it's a little loud. Okay, and then you would right click, you would right click the tempo. Okay, and then go to tap tempo, and you would hit spacebar and then tap with the tempo. So 2, 3, 4, and 2, 2, 3, 4, and 3, 2, 3, 4, and 4, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So I was close. So it's 93, 94-ish that I tapped it out. So what you would do is you go from that tempo, and then you just zoom in and you turn the metronome on. And just you ask yourself, does it line up or does it not line up? 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, and now this is cool because he plays the transients or the sharp parts before the downbeat, so you really have to listen to the music to count it out. Okay, so we're gonna wait until we get to a downbeat. 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. Okay, so if you're not sure between 94 and 93, I can visually see that this transient or this pointy part lines up to the grid. So after the 8-bar mark, we're still at the right BPM. So that's a way to, like, if you're not sure if it's 93 or 94, that's a way you would determine. At 94 BPM, that wouldn't be lined up to the grid. Okay, so that's a clear, obvious sign that this is the right BPM. All right, so now we have the BPM. We have to determine how much of the sample do we actually want. I'm going to show you 2 different methods. Let me write this down. The first method is going to be direct in the playlist. The second one is going to be chops. So if you have a keyboard where you have pads, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Okay, so I like the loop. It sounds really good. I'm also going to show you how to modernize this loop. So, okay, let's do that as well. So much to show you. Okay, so the first thing is grab the slice tool. So whenever you want to chop up your sample and chop a piece of the song outside of the rest of the song, you grab what's called the slice tool. All right, so hitting the slice tool, we're gonna here are 2 commands you need to know. Hit shift and left click to do vertical slices. So left click, that will do a vertical slice. And what it does is it helps you separate the music from the other parts of the music. Okay, or if you have something, let's say you wanna slice at this pointy part, but you're like, I'm holding shift, but I can't get my slicer to go there. Or you left click and you can't get it to go there. Hit shift alt on your keyboard, shift option on Mac, and it will allow you to do all these micro slices, all these nudges. So then you could slice directly at that spot if that's where you want it to slice. But for me, I want to slice at the even spot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2. I think we had 8 bars, was it? I'm not going to sit here and count out 8 bars and make you recount that. So let's hit shift, left click. It was at the 8 bar mark, I remember. Okay, so what you do once you slice something out, I would highly recommend that you click in the top left and go to make unique as sample. Okay, if we're chopping individual phrases. The reason we do that is because now if I drag this to a different track and I left click on the edge, there's no more music. Okay, but if I didn't make it unique as a sample, what would happen is, let's say I want to reverse this whole track. It reverses it from the actual beginning of the song and it uses all of the information in the sample, which, like, let's say you're just trying to reverse this part, but what it will do is reverse the entire song because it still sees it as the entire song. So what you have to do is save it as a sample, unique as sample, so that it's its own thing. Okay, and then from here, if I want to reverse it, it only reverses this part. Pretty cool sound. Okay, but that's more Bryson Tiller, Drake type stuff. So I'm showing you that. Okay, there's another. I don't want to complicate you with the options here. Okay, so now that we have that, 1, 2, we have 8 bars. Now I can right click and get rid of the rest. I don't need it. Okay, so now we need some drums. So we have the sample going. Let's hit Control S to save. It's a good habit. Now let's find some drums. Now I would highly recommend you get the Lunch 77 drum kit. If you're making anything hip hop, Lunch 77 compiled all these drum sounds. He's like a master of sound selection and went through every single sound and compiled it in this massive drum kit. We have the link in our Discord. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/Discord. I'll link it below. It's in the drum kit channel in our Discord. So we have Chief Keef. There's just so many 808 Mafia sounds, Kenny Beats. It's just so many. So now I have to ask, whose drums or whose style do I want to create in the mind of? I love Pharrell. I love the Neptunes. I don't think that would fit this specific sample. Maybe a Dr. Dre type drum would work because I want to make like a Nas type beat. So let's start with Dr. Dre's kicks. This is a nice kick. So let's right click, get in the habit of opening in new channel. A lot of people tell you to drag the kicks, and that can cause a lot of problems down the line. So right click and open up a new channel. Now we can click on what's called the channel rack, and this will allow us to draw in notes for the kick. So now I won't do anything because we're in what's called song mode, but I can now write a rhythm. So what we need to do is drag this pattern into our actual view where we can hear it. So click on the patterns icon, left click, and just drag this in. Now we have pattern 1 inside of our playlist. I recommend you just slide this out so it's a little bit longer. This will allow you to create as you're hearing the music. Then go to song mode, and then we're going to go to the channel rack here. So I just want a basic, maybe 4 to the floor. Maybe right click, fill each 4 steps. I want that Nas type feel. Okay, so now I just left click the edge here. Hit Control to highlight, and then hit Control B to latch paste. As long as you have it perfectly sliced, it will latch paste properly. Let's go to song mode, hit space. This is where I recommend you start rapping to yourself. To get far in 19, not knife from one of all, in the 17 from one of all, feeling crazy dope in the oat on the R's, in the 8 on the taste the boulevard. Okay, let's grab a snare. We want to make sure we're leaving enough room for the artist. I need a boom. So let's go through the snares in the Dr. Dre kit. I need a. So the snare is going to determine the character for your song. So I'm just listening for. I'm using my up and down arrow to cycle through sounds. Look how many snares there are. Here we. It's kind of like, but it's not really. What it can do, it's just not the exact sound I hear in my head. This is kind of what I hear. Let's right click, open that up a new channel. I'm going to open up the other snare, new channel. Wait. Let's right click, open that up. We're just pulling options right now. Kind of has the tail into it, but not the beginning. It's like that meme where he's going through 1,000 snares. Okay, now we're in more trappy snares. There's so many snares, I'm not going to bore you to tears. Okay, so we have a couple options. I'm using the comma button to play the... Now go to options, go to your typing keyboard to piano, so that when you can do what I'm doing, which is pressing the comma on my keyboard, which is middle C, to play these sounds. So now I can hear them as I click on them. So I have to figure out which sound feels best. I like the sound, but it's a little long. So I'm gonna go to the actual sound, clicking on the name. And you see this little gap in the beginning. I'm gonna get a sample start and move this up so it doesn't listen to that. And I'm also gonna fade it out so it's shorter. It's a little tighter. Okay, now we need bass and we need a hi-hat of some sort. I just need a simple. Let's go to closed hi-hats. That's the perfect one. Let's right click, open that up. Let me show you a trick for your hi-hats. Right click, fill each 2 steps. Now it's too early, so the hi-hats are not in the groove, it's called. So go to your hi-hat tab, click on the wrench tool, and turn up your time shift. So it delays the hi-hat a little bit. So swings, it's off the beat a little bit. Okay, so that simple little trick can make your drum sound way better. So now we need bass. So the question is, where do you get bass from? There's a lot of 808 samples out there, but FL doesn't come with the greatest bass sounds. It's going to be straightforward with you. I'm trying to think of a good bass we could use for this track. I'm going to pause the video to find one. All right, so when in doubt, I don't have a good bass guitar for you, so we're going to click the plus icon right here, or I'm going to replace this with what's called 3X OSC. I'm going to turn down oscillators 2 and 3's volume, which are these buttons right here. So now we just have a sine wave. Okay, just pull your coarse pitch down. And now we have a simple sine wave used in a lot of hip hop records. I recommend you go to the 3X OSC, go to your cog icon, go to your wrench tool, and turn on what's called monophonic mode. So now I can only play one note at a time. Okay, so the notes don't overlap. Okay, so now I just have to come up with a pattern. Again, I'm using my typing keyboard. Go to options, typing keyboard to piano, and I'm playing that to play notes. That was kind of cool. Dude, I kind of like that. Let's record that. Record notes and automation. Now notice I went to a new pattern by just left clicking and dragging to a new pattern. When I turn on my metronome, go to pattern mode this time and listen to the metronome as I play. Wait, let's go actually back to pattern 1 so I can hear my drum timing. Okay, so it's a little bit lag. So okay, let's hear it in context. Turn off the record button. This may or may not match because I'm not listening to the sample. That's why I tell you to, if you're going to add stuff, try going to song mode and dragging your patterns into song mode so you can hear it in real time. It has a nice bounce, but let's see if it fits the sample. It doesn't really fit the sample, but I like the bounce. So let's figure out a way where we can that's addictive. I got for HD. Nas like Nas to say free. For the style to say free. And the ain't eat like from down I'm the free type. No days, strong names for like 3 nights. Okay, let's figure out a way to make this work. So now I'm going to show you. So that's how you make your samples work in the playlist. I told you how to chop, but now let's get into a couple other ways. Actually, this is another way to chop. So you can double click inside the sample. You can right click and open it in what's called Slice X. So if you have a drum pad keyboard, you can use Slice X. Just go to your regions tab, go to auto slice, and then choose medium slicing or any one you want, but let's go to medium slicing. So now you can use your pads on your MIDI controller to play the notes. Now by default, what it does is, you may be wondering like, how do you get rid of these notes? Hit Control X. Pardon me. Okay, to get rid of those notes. So now when I play I'm playing it like I'm playing the pads. We're going to right click, go to piano roll to see the notes. So each chop is layered to a specific marker, it's called. Laid out on the marker. So if you like playing chops, you could do it this way. Or you could make the chops your own way, but you would have to manually go in. So let's say you want to reset, you would just go to Regions tab, delete, and you would make your chops manually. To do that, you would just highlight where you want to chop. Okay, grab this and then add marker, call it whatever. Now that's marker 1. Let's call this marker 2. Highlight that, go here, marker 2. So now when I go inside my piano roll, right click, go into your piano roll. Now I only have 2. So you can do it that way as well. That's 2 different ways to do it, but we're basically doing the same thing, just chopping it up into micro parts. But I want to show you a different way to chop the sample, which is more of a trapified way, I would say. So double click in here. So if you're making like trap drums, this is a really good technique. I learned this from Wonder Girl. So double click, right click, go to open in Fruity Slicer. Now, before we do this, actually, I just remembered something. We need to make sure this is 93 BPM, but we need to remember that if we're at a different BPM, let's say 150 BPM for trap. Actually, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make 2 sections. I'm going to pause the video to find some trap drums. All right, let's say you want a trap section. We're going to hit shift, left click, and drag this sample over. I'm going to pull it to a different area because I'm going to show you something that we have to do for different BPMs. So let's say your sample's at 93 BPM, but you want your trap stuff to be at 150. So for this, I don't usually do this. I'm just doing this for the video. What I'm going to do is right click, create an automation clip for the tempo of the track. You don't need to do this. This is only because we're shifting from 93 to 150. So you don't have to do what I'm doing right now. But I'm going to show you how to change tempo. You get a bonus. Okay, so 93. Now what we do is we right click and we copy the value. Okay, then we right click with these little dots called nodes and we hit paste. Okay, so we right click, paste. Now what I want to do is add another point, okay, where I have it at 150 BPM. So I need to change the BPM to 150. Now see how everything's moving. I'm going to show you how to fix that in a second. But let's go to 150, for example. Right click, copy the value, and then paste that into the tempo. Right click, paste. So you see how when I change the BPM, everything moves. So let's pull it back to 93. And the first thing we need to do is double click the sample, go to mode, stretch mode. Okay, so now when I change the BPM, it doesn't move the sample like it just happened. But the technique that I'm showing you, if you don't do this step, it won't sound right. So what we need to do is, because we time stretched it and we're about to change the BPM, what we need to do is render the file again so that it has time stretched data on the actual sample, because right now it doesn't even know. It still thinks that it's at 93 BPM. Okay, if I load it up in what's called the Fruity Slicer. So I'm going to drag this new audio to a new track. And remember, it has to be time stretched first. Now we're at 150. Let's go to 150 BPM. Let me slide this up. I actually had it in there. Let's move it over here for the demo's sake. Okay, so now it's at 150 BPM. I'm going to right click where it says track, consolidate tracks from the time selection. Okay, we want to cut the remainder. It's going to be a wave 16-bit. Hit start. All right, so now we have the consolidated audio. This is important because, again, if I try to do this step, the next step, and I didn't do that first step, it won't work. Okay, so hopefully you followed the steps so far. Okay, we're going to double click this new sample. We're going to right click and open a new Fruity Slicer. Now keep in mind, Fruity Slicer doesn't automatically time stretch. So it reads the data on the actual file, which used to say 93 BPM. Now it says 150. Let's go to slice mode. We're going to slice it by the beat. So now if I right click, you can preview. So this is going to give you that J. Cole, you know, started from the bottom, now he hit, that type of vibe. Let's go to pattern 2, because if you go to your channel rack, you'll now see everything's mapped out automatically in your channel rack. If it's not, go to dump beat to piano roll and click normal. Now I would recommend you click on this in your channel rack, hit Control X and move it to a new pattern up for its, you know, by itself. Like if it's in your drum pattern, hit Control X, move it to its own pattern. You don't want the pattern to overlap with other stuff. Okay, so now we have it separated. We're going to go to our pattern tab, left click and drag pattern 2 in. And now we have the sample chopped up. So now we can mute these 2 audio files, and all we have now are the MIDI chops. See how it just sounds different? Okay, so what we can do now is go inside of our channel rack, open up Fruity Slicer, and do cool stuff. So the first thing I'd like to do is time stretch the sample. What this does is it makes each chop longer. So now we get a unique vibe. If you hear clicks and pops, just pull up your attack knob. So now it sounds like we chopped it and flipped it. Let's just add a couple 808s in here. So again, when we're in trap mode, like 120 BPM and above, turn your metronome on to help you count. The clap and the snare is going to go. So here's the clap, here's the 808, here's the hi-hat. These are going to go in the 3 and the 7 count. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, whenever your BPM goes above about 120, the snare timing changes. Okay, the hi-hat's just simple right click, fill each 2 steps. So now we have a unique vibe. So let's hear all this together. Now, we're not trying to make a masterpiece right now. I'm just trying to show you how to put this stuff together. Let's turn these hi-hats down a little bit. So here's our 93 BPM. Now, see, when you have these 90s type of drums, that's when a sample is cool to play as is because we're used to that slower timing. For newer BPMs, if I had this sample over the trap drums, it would just sound different. It wouldn't sound cohesive and tight. It just sounds loose because we don't have those chops. So those chops are important because it makes it not sound so loose. So here are our 2 sections. This is the Nas part, and then I show you how to make it trapified. Modernize it. See how that's 2 different vibes? So I'm going to give you the project files. Don't worry about this tempo automation. I'll show you how to delete it. Actually, I might, I'm going to give you the project file as is, but I'm going to show you how to delete the tempo automation just so you don't get confused. See how when the tempo changes, let's put this on stretch mode. So that's 2 different ways to sample, older style drums and modern style drums. All right, so the final thing is when I give you the project files, again, they're going to be at busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. When I give you the project files and if you keep this tempo change, you'll be making the beat over here and then it will just change. So what I'm going to do is show you how to delete this completely. You can't just go into the channel rack and right click and delete. That's not going to fully delete it. You need to go into what's called your browser. Go to where it says current projects, go to patterns, go to where it says initialize controls, and we want to right click and delete the tempo. Okay, so we want to right click, make sure this is deleted. And then we want to make sure that it's not in the initialize controls. Okay. See how I deleted the tempo, so it's not going to make sense at 150, but I'm going to Control Z what I just did. So that's how you delete the tempo if you want to just start fresh with any BPM you want. Okay, so that's it. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. Let's go big screen. So I want to thank you for sticking in with me. We've come a long way, but now you know how to make your first sample beat in FL Studio. To learn more, just go to premium.busyworksbeats.com. We have a free FL Studio 21 course for beginners. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Like the video so we can help more people around the world. Peace.